You're tuned in to Shop Talk, presented by RaceOnTexas.com. Here's your host, Caleb McFarland.
Thank you for joining us. Here we are for episode 2 of Shop Talk. Joining us on the podcast today is Mr. Channin Tankersley, 4-time ASCS Gulf South Region Champion, and with him, crewman and family member, his cousin, Mr. Clay Traylor. And, you know, we've chatted a long time here and there throughout the years about, well, what's racing, you know, a sprint car like. And I've got a pretty good idea about it now, hearing that from you. So we'll just jump right in it. So if you had to explain to people what it's like to drive a sprint car, what's it like to drive a sprint car?
It's just intense, you know, 110% the whole time. There's no, not a lot of give and take. It's just like 100% hard charging. So you definitely got to be on your A game, that's for sure.
So how would you say that it all started for you? Like, what got you driving sprint cars?
You know, my pops, he got me into motocross and around age 5. So we started doing that and, you know, traveled around the country. And, you know, after hitting the ground enough and being hurt enough as a kid, Mom thought it'd be wise to have seatbelt and a roll cage. So got into junior sprints at the time around age 9 and ran those for a few years and then graduated into the micros and then ran those till I was about age 15 and then graduated straight from a micro into the 360 sprint car and been doing that ever since.
So you're pretty much just kind of started out from a trial and error of not wanting to get hurt anymore to surrounding yourself with good safety equipment and a roll cage and started in open wheel racing and just, it's where it stuck.
Pretty much, yeah. You know, racing in general is near and dear to my heart, whether it's, you know, on 4 wheels or 2 or, you know, a stock car to, you know, a sprint car. So 15, I think we're going on year 16 running sprint cars. Never thought I'd be being it that long, but I'm definitely glad and blessed for that and looking for, you know, several more years.
And, you know, you say you've been doing it 15, 16 years, and your cousin Clay's been helping on the race team for last, arguably, about, 4 or 5 years, full-time, more or less?
He actually, I kind of felt like we groomed him a little bit because, you know, when he first come on board, he was, 10 maybe?
About 10 years old.
Yeah, and he's 20 now, so about the last 10 years.
He's been a part of the ride from the get-go. After y'all figured things out, you know, for the first 6 years, then it just kind of was able to jump in when things are rolling. So, you know, you're coming in cold at age 10, not knowing anything about working on a sprint car, and so we'll just kind of argue and say, what was your first job, scraping mud?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, my dad used to always take me to the track when Channin was racing, and I would just hang out and clean mud and just do whatever I could do. And Channin's dad was always his crew chief, so I did whatever he said, and that was my job. No matter what he said that night, that's what I did.
And, man, I got to tell you, well, for those that don't know, Channin has his own business, and Clay works for him. So, I mean, that's not a bad employee starting out at 10 years old, gets told what to do and does the job. I mean, does that kind of carry over now a little bit? Or he kind of have a few ideas of his own?
Well, you know, this racing in general, you have to be so disciplined. And to have someone that, I'm not going to say you can groom them that young, but in sprint car racing, there's a lot of work ethic involved. And whenever you can have someone that young that jumps on board and, you know, follows protocol and sticks with it and have that attention to detail, you know, that translates into the workforce. And, that's hard to find. Yeah. So it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, you already knew he could work hard from everything that he did at the racetrack and in the shop. And then, you know, of course, you know, a lot of hard work goes into showing cows. And, you know, you were very successful in that, Clay, through your last several years in high school. Unfortunately, COVID kind of ruined some of that fun with you with shows. But, you know, as far as work ethic, I mean, starting at age 10 with that discipline and, as Channin said, attention to detail, how'd that carry over into your own work with the cows?
Well, with like what my dad always taught me, he said always take care of your business. So no matter what you're doing, always whatever you start, you always got to finish. So doing that, whether it be at the race car shop, at the racetrack, at the barn, at a show, no matter what, you got to start what you finish and make sure you give it 110% no matter what.
And we kind of can argue, that when we look at society that's not a part of racing, that it almost kind of feels as if not a disconnect, but it's a, you can tell a difference from someone that works hard in the racing industry to someone that works hard outside of the racing industry. Like it's both working hard, but in different aspects. Like it's a completely different ball game to be disciplined and attention to detail and things like that in the shop and then at the track compared to just working hard at your everyday 9 to 5.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I feel like we put twice to 3 times as much work into our racing as we do our normal business, but it should be the other way around. But it's so much. Races are won at the shop. That's an absolute true statement. It's all about the details. You don't. Everything's so equal now, and you can buy so much stuff off the shelf or from a certain engine builder or chassis manufacturer that you got to have like a little here, a little there, and all that adds up into speed. And somebody's just not going to come out of the box and just be that much faster. That's just the biggest thing that I notice is all the fine-tuned stuff that a lot of people overlook or wait till Saturday to work on their stuff. That's just the biggest thing in my eyes.
You mentioned as much time that you spend in the shop. So what would you say is a normal week as far as a routine maintenance? Y'all just raced a Saturday show and you're getting ready to run Saturday the week after. Like, starting once you leave the racetrack.
So once we get back to the shop, normally I like to take half the day off just to kind of recoup because normally we race out of town, so we have to super truck home overnight and, everybody's wore out. But I like to get everything washed up and cleaned up as far as with the car and get everything, pickled and...
Pickled?
So alcohol, it's very
Okay.
it's very corrosive on the
Okay.
motors,
Right.
especially like our injectors.
Okay.
You have to get all the alcohol out of it and just lube them up, essentially is all it is.
Okay.
Because it will destroy a motor in a heartbeat.
Okay. I knew there was a little bit of aspect of extra cleaning involved with alcohol, but I didn't know the term was pickled, so you threw me there. But so you'll pickle what you need to pickle.
Yeah, pretty much. Just you just lube the fuel system up, get all the alcohol out, because it will. I've seen it eat the injector runners out, like turn them into powder. Like it will destroy your stuff if you don't stay on top of it. And a lot of new guys that get into it don't realize that and have to learn the hard way. A $5,000 set of injectors. It's not very fun.
Jeez.
But anyways, so we'll do all of our washing and cleaning on like Sunday night, and then Monday, providing we don't just trash our stuff the week before, we'll just do our normal routine maintenance, which we're probably a little more excessive than most. It'll go up on jack stands. We clean all the bars. Back when I had a lot of time to do this, I would get as bad as I'd pull the front end completely out, the rear end completely out every race weekend. All the torsion bars, the whole drive line. To essentially, it was a chassis with a seat, a steering box, and motor in it.
Wow.
And all the torsion stop bolts, all the arm bolts, everything got pulled apart and got cleaned. Everything got greased. Everything got put back together. There was at one point when I was doing it full time that I had a full hard 8-hour day of just cleaning stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, and but you never had to take a hammer to the car to get something on or off. You could turn all the nuts and bolts by hand.
Right.
Like everything was like perfect. And, and then we re-square everything every week. Obviously all of our motor maintenance, valves, nozzles, fuel filters, oil, air filters, nozzles. I think I already said that, but it was essentially a fresh 100% race ready car the following weekend.
Oh, and so that was when you said you had more time. So I presume that was more during the championship runs that you had. You know, when you went back to back that one year, and
yeah, we was from about 2009 to about 2016 or 17. You know, we was racing about 50 to 60 races a year, so we was kind of we hit it pretty hard for a good while. And you know, I lived in 2010 on the road pretty much all year. We left home in like March, the beginning of May, and didn't come home till like September.
oh wow,
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. But you know, just it's probably for that stint I did it majority full time, and then kind of as I got older and had to become a responsible adult.
What's an adult? What's an adult?
Absolutely. You know, I kind of started backing off of that, obviously, and focusing on a career. But yeah, it's just it's very, very time consuming, especially for one person.
At some point, we do kind of have to grow up. You know, it's we can't all be Peter Pan hanging out and just fighting off Captain Hook and crowing like roosters. So what are you doing now, you know, with your life aspect as far as career goes, and kind of shifting from more of a just racing to got to work and then race when we can?
Yeah, you know, I come to that crossroads that a lot of people do. It's you either go, 100% and race and do that, or do you, start a career. And I chose that path because I look at a lot of the sprint car guys and just guys in general, and their longevity and of having a good job, it's not very long. You know, you're only as good as your last race, as they say. And I see a lot of good guys that don't have rides, and I didn't want to go that route. And I always thought that if I could start a business or just get a good enough job to where I could fund it myself if I had to. You kind of control your own destiny when you do that.
Right. And you're able to see and look at where you're at and know what you can and can't do per se. And it's kind of one of those things that a lot of people don't want to make that decision and you kind of have to come to that point, but it takes it takes a big person to really kind of look at that from a very very subjective standpoint, and break everything down and kind of realize, well, this is where we're at. But with off season now here in the midst, and we get ready to kind of gear up to 21. So what would be as far as some of your racing goals and plans that you may have on the table, and schedule some time off to go have a little fun in 2021?
So we're planning on shooting for around 30 races ish this year. Probably more 410. Probably do like a half 410, half 360 deal. We're just now starting to get into the 410 scene a little bit and dabble our fingers in that. We really enjoy racing with those guys, especially now that we have to. I think our average tow now to go race is probably around 6 to 8 hours. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Like there's just no racing. So our whole deal is if we're gonna have to haul butt, and go race somewhere, might as well just stab a 410 in there and go, start trying to do that a little bit. So we'll see. Like I said, I haven't seen all the schedules yet, but we're just gonna focus on racing where we want, when we want, and we're still gonna race. It's just according to how things pan out.
That kind of really opens a lot of fun, and a little side conversation to get into. You went and ran with the World of Outlaws a few times, so with going from 360s to running a 410 and going back to 360s. Well, first, what's it like running with those guys? I mean, you're running with the guys that get paid to go race, and you're out there on your weekend to have fun, and you're running with the big dogs, as they say.
Yeah, we we run with the national guys quite a bit. Actually, for a good chunk of my career, we did. And, like the saying goes, whenever you race with fast people, you're bound to get fast. And that's the absolute truth. When we went and started running the 410 deal this year, honestly had a little bit of dumb luck our first night out and run fifth with them at a big show. And, we're like, shoot, we got this. And, we started running with the All-Stars a little bit and got our butt whooped, like legitly. And so, it knocked us down a little bit, but we worked through it and figured some things out because it is quite a bit different. It's a different balance. You have to run different tires. You wouldn't think it would be that big of a deal, but it really is. And, towards the end there, we started getting a really good balance on our stuff and, run a top 10, I think, with the All-Stars once and was knocking on the top 10 at the Outlaw show at the Bowl this year. So, we was decently competitive, but there's definitely a lot of room for improvement.
Growing up, I mean, you know the names, you've seen the guys race all through the years of growing up. I mean, do you get, I wouldn't say starstruck, but the aspect of like, holy cow, I'm sitting here running with Kinzer and Swindell and all these guys that, that you've got to watch and just kind of to want to emulate that type of career.
So very first Outlaw race was at Cotton Bowl in, I think, 2017. And it was just, it was different scenery, that's for sure. Those guys are so on point, and we've been pretty successful in the ASCS 360 deal, and lining up, wheel to wheel with those guys. It's just a surreal experience. I was a super big Jack Hodenshield fan growing up. I liked his balls to the wall, gas it up style, and lining up with like Sheldon and Craig Kinzer and Jason Sides and all them. It's just been around forever. It's once you get to racing, that goes out the window, obviously, but it's just surreal just to be even in the same field as that.
Well, what about you, Clay, on that? I mean, getting to go to some of these shows and kind of getting to see like those same guys that I mean, a lot of people that watch racing, they'll go by the pit pass and go watch the Outlaws to take pictures of them, take pictures with them, and all that. Like, as a guy that's been on the crew and getting to travel to all these kind of tracks, is it the same kind of deal for you, or are you just kind of like, it's another day at work, we got to go out there, be fast, they don't matter?
No, I mean, it was I had some fan favorites like Joey Saldana and Jason Sides, and you got some guys out there that are super fast that you never hear their names only once in a while. But my main deal was I worked on a certain car, so that's the car I really rooted for that night. But it was just a really cool experience to be there with all them guys and see how all them guys work together. And a lot of them Outlaw teams are only 2 or 3 people, and we're over there with like 4 or 5 guys trying to figure everything out, and we're making it work, and we're just trying to hang up there with them big boys. And to me, it was just a really cool experience just to even be there and watch them guys and how well they all work together was to me that was pretty cool. So
they had 2-3 guys, y'all had 5 or 6. Did he learn anything from watching everybody else, or was it was it just kind of like I mean, did y'all pick up anything from watching the other guys work with such a like half the crew, or?
You kind of know the basics, but they when you race 100 times a year, right, you just get into a groove and you just know.
Right, that's true.
That's why those guys are badass. When they run 100 nights a year at all over the country, even up into Canada, and it's whenever you get to that point, you just gel so well with the guys around you. You don't even gotta tell them nothing, and that's why a lot of those guys are successful. The Shots and the Steve Kinzers, their crew chiefs and their crews were with them for years and years and years, and that's a big deal to being fast. Is having a good people around you. And we do it more on a part-time scale, but we have our same group of guys that's been with us for 10 years that we kind of don't have to watch each other or check up on them, and everybody just works good together.
Right. I mean, you're kind of at the point where you're settled in, where everyone knows what their job is on the team, and you don't have to check on them, like you said, because you know, and the key thing to it is you trust that they're going to be able to get the job done when the time comes, and it's been seen. I mean, you catch a flat, or you got to replace the front axle. I mean, I remember a few times in Beaumont, from up there in the announcer's box, sitting there watching y'all get dragged into the hot pits. Y'all throw a whole new front end, and you come from the back and ended up finishing the top 10 in a 20-car field. I mean, like, it all comes through together. And on the note of Beaumont, you and I, we've chatted about this before. Beaumont's known for having those long straightaways and those kind of more tight corners. So one time you were clocked going into the corner by the security guy there on the radar gun at about 115, 120 miles an hour, and then just turning to left.
So a lot of people that are not familiar with the Golden Triangle or Beaumont, I grew up and cut my teeth there pretty much since day one, and probably one of my favorite tracks that I've been to. I've had a lot of success there. You just got to get up on the wheel and, get up on the wall. And, the good old days of Beaumont, you'd be dragging the bumper on the wall or knocking the dang mud cover off of it, and, it's different. There's not a lot of tracks out there like that. Kind of more of a shorter Williams Grove-ish, super tight. But it just made for good racing because it broke your momentum every lap. It wasn't just to get out there and get going in clean air and roll. Like, that was one of those tracks you could start scratch, and if you had a good car and you things worked out, you could have a shot at winning it.
Yeah, and so that kind of brings up the next thing here on the list is what would you say would be one of your most favorite racing moments from, I mean, even running junior sprints on up, just from everything in your racing career? What's something that sticks out as just like something that pops in your head that you remember and be like, yeah?
Obviously the first sprint car win. So this is going to be two parts. So my first sprint car win ever was at Houston Raceway Park. It was my third time ever in a sprint car.
Dang.
I was 15 years old, and like the stars aligned. It was a slick, put it up on the wall and let it eat track, like my driving style. And things worked out that night. I made a lot of mistakes that night, and I shouldn't have won it, but I did. And so that was near and dear to my heart. I think that was 2005. And then I ran ASCS for probably 3 years and went on a dry spell. Didn't want to race for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and so 2008 in Chatham, Louisiana, finally broke through and got my first ASCS win. I think the cool thing about it was we sucked in the heat race, like horrible. Like didn't deserve to be in the A main.
Right, yeah.
And I think we started 14th or 16th in the A, and was leading it by like lap 5.
Right.
Like out of the stars aligned, and went on to win that. And the next race after that, it was at Beaumont, and then it's just like we started clicking them off. It's like it was so hard to get that first one, and then after that, it just kind of snowballed from there, and been going hard at it ever since.
And through the years, it was a family affair for a while, and then you got teamed up with Marvin and Peggy Pearson, with Jason and the Borgs with G3 Boats, and now running full time, for Bruce, and every year from every team, you've been able to essentially get the job done. Through different car owners and race teams, y'all find the groove to make it work and get in victory lane, win championships. So, going through different teams and different car owners, like what would you say would be the key factor between all the different car owners and teams that makes it work, that makes it all come to fruition?
So the biggest thing is that I've learned just in racing and life in general is just never burn bridges. Bruce has sponsored me or been a part of my career since day one of sprint cars. He was my first ever sponsor. And he sponsored us, and he's the one who put me on the national tour the year I ran that. And, we run that, I think, my dad's car for 6-7 years maybe. Then 2012, I got hooked up with Jeff Lutz out of Tomball, and we went on, and man, we had like a killer season. That really kind of opened the doors to a few more teams that I had drove for. Richard James Cooper out of Magnolia, and then I got hooked up with Marvin and Peggy Pearson for the 14 season, and that's when we won our first championship. And then, like everything, one thing leads to another, and I had the opportunity to kind of not start my own thing, but kind of run and manage it. Race for a guy named Eric Borg out of
Eric,
Beaumont.
not Jason. Eric, that's right.
Yeah, and he had some financial backing through G3 Boats, and we put a really good team together. We had very, very good stuff, and the first year was a little rocky. I think we won 1 or 2 races. Second year, we really hit it hard and won a lot of races. Probably best year racing I've ever had, and actually made money racing, which is kind of a shocker.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know that's hard to say, but yeah, it was pretty intense. And then that team went away, and kind of one thing led to another, and got hooked back up with Bruce driving for his cars, and been with him ever since.
So we're gonna race Chili Bowl this year?
No,
Come on, you can rent a car, 10,000. You can rent one. I'm
sure I could probably own one for about 20, but we've thought about it. This isn't feasible to spend that amount of money for a few races a year now.
Right.
If maybe I was to buy one or something like that, I'd probably have to run and do some more racing to justify it. It's just, I don't know, it's like anything. Life gets in the way, and I just don't have the time I used to.
Right.
So.
We've kicked around the whole journey from, where you started to where we are now, how you got here, favorite moments about the journey. So, what would you say would be looking forward into the future, not just 21 or 2020, not 2021, excuse me, or 22, but, looking forward, like what would be like your ultimate goal as far as a racing career for, like, whenever you hang the helmet up, be like, I did that?
The biggest thing is all the big races I've ever been to in my life, I've run second so many damn times. I've never got a big race. There's a few of them that stick out in my mind that I still kick myself in the ass over making that little mistake. But I just like to get a big race, whether it's a national tour race or all-star race or outlaw or just a big race in general. I've had several opportunities to win them, and I've been leading them and just haven't sealed the deal. And that's on me. I've had the cars and the equipment to do that. I just failed as a driver, and before I do hang it up, I'd like to win a big race. That's kind of the last thing to cross out, and I'd be pretty cool with that.
And that's something really cool that is the phrase "hang your hat on." Is to be able to win at the regional level with success. Whether it's with championships or just being one of the guys that when other people show up to race, they're like, oh, well, Channon's here. We're running for second. And it's just kind of one of those kind of deals that you can hang your hat on it because you're beating those that are on the higher level, and it just kind of culminates to the pinnacle of it, having that goal and being that close to it. And once you achieve it, it's just, all right, we're here, we've done it.
And that's it's just it's so hard just in general in anything, like just to win. Like you gotta have your stuff together so well, and it just amazes me the guys that just dominate, and it's hard to explain to someone that's not involved in it, but it is very, very difficult to not only be consistent, but be consistently winning, and it's just my hat's off to them.
On the note of consistently winning, Kyle Larson, he went on one heck of a run this year in the dirt racing world, and you got to race with him, and from what I remember, a story when we talked about a couple months ago is he passed you, and you had some thoughts that were going through your mind, or was it that you were watching him and you're just like blown away?
Yeah, we were, I think we were in hot laps. I was in his session, and I was feeling great. Like, I was like, man, I'm catching the guy in front of me, and then Larson blows by me, and I'm just like shaking my head, like, here it is. I'm over here feeling great, balanced, competitive. He's just on like another level. Like, he's just got that extra little bit of, feeling in his butt, and hand-eye coordination that most of us don't have. And it's just to do what he has done it's pretty amazing. Like, I don't think you'll ever see it again.
Well, Channin, thank you so much for coming on by and joining us on this episode of Shop Talk, and for bringing your cousin Clay along, gets to weigh in and kind of give a little bit of a crewman perspective to what it takes to be running a sprint car and things of the such. And we look forward to catching up with you in 2021 to see about how these goals are progressing for you in next year's racing season. And to wrap things up, how I end them anytime when I'm announcing, I am Caleb McFarland. Thank you and good night.